And welcome back to Access Channel Comics. Today, a look back at this past week of the DC crossover. Now, as many of you know, Monday night started the DC crossover with Supergirl. It was sort of a crossover, but then again, it sort of was not. Now, for those of you who may have been hearing the big news, leading up to the crossover, they did warn ahead that Supergirl's episode would still mainly be about just her show. And it was a pretty good episode. But at the end, that's when the crossover had officially began. We did see Barry and Cisco arrive. We did see what I call many times the time bubble, where Cisco vibes through. We saw that a couple times in the episode. It kind of slipped my mind at first of what that was about because it just kept appearing. But then also remember that had been used, of course, on The Flash before. And it was pretty exciting to see Barry and Cisco arrive at the end. But when everything's really kicked off was in The Flash. And The Flash is a pretty good episode itself during the crossover. Seeing the characters meet and pretty much for the first time. Now, just moving along, what I liked about this crossover was this. You know, I liked many of the head nods that was going on, certain type of things that was said. It was definitely relating to the actual world of DC and also realistically in life. You know, looking at the Arrow 100th episode, such as, for example, when Malcolm says to Thea, you know, when she asked where Tommy was, Malcolm said, you know, they got to work a lot of late nights in Chicago. Well, that was a head nod to Tommy's, the actor who plays Tommy, who used to play Tommy, show Chicago Man on NBC, which is doing quite well. Also, on DC's Legends of Tomorrow, when Felicity looks at Kara with the glasses and the hair and the ponytail, and she said, wow, it's like looking in a mirror. And when Ray says, you know, she looks like my cousin, that was a head nod to 10 years ago, Superman Returns. As y'all know, Brandon Routh plays Superman, and of course Kara is playing Supergirl, and they are cousins. So it's a nice little head nod. I like things like that. Overall, the crossover, I do like the crossover event. Do I think it could have been better? I do think it could have been better, but at the same time, please realize this. For the last 2 years, they've done crossovers, but the first two crossovers were mainly about Flash and Arrow. So you can do a lot of things to justify those guys in a 1 hour time frame. But when it comes to this crossover, the difference is you've got a lot more characters. Hey, I would have loved for each episode of the 4 nights to be 2 hours each episode. Let's face it, also TV costs. And so, just like anyone, just like any project, they're on a budget. But I do think they should have made Legends 2 hours. That would have been a great way to end it. But overall, I really did like the presentation. I like the fight scenes and everything. The 100th episode of Arrow, I really liked. I liked the whole episode. My only gripe about that and complaint was the way they handled Deathstroke. It was fascinating to see Deathstroke return in the costume. However, that was not Manu Bennett. Manu Bennett, it was probably kind of tough to get him on the episode because he is one of those actors who does a lot of work in film and television. So he may not have been available. You know, I was kind of disappointed in the way they handled Deathstroke. At first, I was not. You know, when he was taking it to, you know, Dig and Oliver. But then when Sarah stepped in, now Sarah is lethal, true. But Deathstroke is not supposed to go down that easily. And even when Oliver started taking him down towards the end, Deathstroke, out of all those fighters, is the most deadly. You know, we did get to see Malcolm Merlyn, Deathstroke, and also Damien Dark standing side by side. We also got to see Deathstroke's men. This was in Arrow's 100th episode, when it was very reminiscent to 2 episodes in the DC Pantheon that I remember. In Batman the Animated Series, Per Chance to Dream, and also in Justice League Unlimited for the Man Who Has Everything, when Mongol had brought down the eggplant and strapped himself on to Superman when he would visualize himself in the world, but he had to face and realize it wasn't real. That was very deep, a very deep episode right there, and Oliver admitting to that. It was hard for Thea to let go at first. You know, just focusing on Arrow a bit. I am talking mainly about Arrow because the focus is mainly on Arrows. You know, it's his 100th episode. You know, seeing where the show, how far it's come. That's one of the cool things. The show's been out for a while. It's like seeing The Walking Dead now 7 seasons, and now it was pretty cool recently to hear Rick mention Shane's name, and and if you go back and take a look at Arrow this season, some of the names that were mentioned and the head nods that were given, it was just fantastic to see and see how far it's come. They really did a good job of showing respect to past characters, such as when you see, and also when Oliver and everyone was about to leave and about to head back home, you got to see the holograms. You got to see Roy. You got to see, of course, again, Thea and Oliver's parents. You got to see, Laurel and everyone. That was fantastic. It was just a great take. They mentioned Walter's name, characters that hadn't been there for a while, and you kind of forget about sometimes. But you be like, that's right, so and so did used to be on this show and everything. And when shows last a long time like that, that's what happens. You see that on The Walking Dead. You see that on Arrow. We're going to see it on some more shows if they last for a while, like The Flash. We used to see it in the past with a show like Smallville. We saw it with ER and the Law and Order shows and everything. And that's the credibility these shows have. And you take a look, and DC has done, with Warner Brothers on the CW, has done a beautiful job in building up the universe. It's funny because when Sarah turned Oliver said, "Can you believe we just started off with us too?" And if you take a look back in realistic terms, it all started off with Arrow. Just like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it started off with Iron Man. And now look what it built to. Look in the DC mythology of live action film. It started off with Superman back in the day. And then, it reunited with Batman. And look where it has all come to be. And now you got all these characters. That's a great thing. I really enjoyed all 4 shows this week. It was just to see these characters on the big screen. And I was like, wow, this is something I grew up reading in the comic books. This is something I saw in the cartoons like the Super Friends. To see the actual Hall of Justice, that was just a beautiful sight. It just makes you think, where will this go from here on out? Think about maybe next year around this time, we may see an even bigger crossover. Maybe Superman and Martian Manhunter join the fold, and some other DC characters. And that's some of the things I really enjoyed about this, bringing the newer characters in. I did want to see some more stuff. Maybe Oliver talked to Vixen like, hey, I know your granddaughter. And, they kind of didn't do things like that. The cool thing about it was getting so caught up in the episode, but before you know it, you look at your watch or your clock or something like that, or your phone. You're like, man, the episode is almost about over. They got like 15 more minutes. You kind of wish it would last 2 hours, like I said, but those are the breaks. But what do you guys think about the Fortnite crossover? Why did you like it? Did you not like it? Was it underwhelming? Was it overwhelming? Put your comments at the bottom. This is something that's very exciting. Now we're going to see these shows. They're about to go to their break pretty soon. The mid-season finales. And so that's something that we kind of got used to over the years. For example, Arrow more than likely won't be back until like the very end of January, maybe. A lot of the shows are going to be going on the mid-season, breaks. So they got about 1 more episode before then, if I'm not mistaken. They're showing the trailer for Arrow coming up this week, and the same thing with The Flash. I think these shows are headed in a pretty good direction. So I wish them nothing but the best. You got to see some other shows that's coming up on the other DC side of things. Gotham had a pretty good episode coming up this past week, and we're moving on with more from The Walking Dead. Seeing more of these characters. I think The Walking Dead's pace is going to pick up pretty big. It's been going kind of slow, but understandable. They've been catching up with everyone. Big question is, where is Heath? What happened to Heath? Did the Saviors take him? It's going to be very interesting to see. So, it's going to be like who's next? Who's going to have a big part? It's going to be very interesting because a lot of people thinking maybe Heath is the Holly of the show. In the comics, Negan killed Holly and brought her with the bag over her head, and she was a walker. She wound up biting the knees. Will that happen with Heath? So it's going to be, very interesting to see what goes on with these shows. Put your comments at the bottom. What are some of your favorite shows that you love to watch? Whether that is on regular television, on networks like the CW, whether it's on Netflix, AMC, or anything like that. What are some of your top shows? So with that, we're going to wrap this on up. Just wanted to go a little brief overview and talk about the shows, some things I liked about it this past week. Also, click that subscribe button, keep this channel going. Also, you can click to the lower bottom, get catch up on some past episodes from the Access Channel Comics. So at Access Channel Comics, we enjoy you having us in your home, on the road and everything. Now, we do encourage you to be good to others and let others be good to you. In Access Channel Comics, we most of all realize there are many, there are few, but there are none like you. Peace.